Hello, children. I welcome you all for this revision session. Children, soon you will be having your first periodic test exam. And from biology, chapter number 5, that is fundamental unit of life, is coming in periodic test. So, let us revise that chapter once again. We have divided the entire chapter into two sessions. In this session, I will take some part and I will also give you some examples of questions, that what type of questions can be asked in this exam. And the remaining part of the chapter will be taken in another session. So let us begin with a short introduction of this chapter. That in this chapter we will be studying about prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, multicellular organisms, cell membrane and cell wall. We will also study about cell organelles, chloroplast, mitochondria, vacuoles, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus and nucleus. And then we will also study about chromosomes, its basic structure, function and numbers, etc. Now, if you will look in your textbook, you will find this as first and second page of your chapter 5, and the next coming pages would look like this. So let us discuss these pages in today's session. So now we will start the session with the discovery of cell. In year 1665, Robert Hooke, an English scientist, saw the cell in a thick slice of cork with his crude microscope. He observed as honeycomb-like structure and named them as celluli or cells. So, in his study or in his discovery, Mr. Robert Hooke indicated for the first time that living cells consist of number of small structures or unit. To each of these unit he gave the term cell. But these cells were not the living cells, as his sample which he took for his experiment for observing that structure was not live cell. As I told you earlier, it was a cork of a bark of a tree. So that is not considered as living cell, that is a dead part of a plant. So to that dead part he took as his sample and he observed it under his self-designed microscope. But he was the first one who very first coined the term cell or observed the structure cell, and he also indicated that all the living beings are made up of very small units or small compartments. The other type of microscope is electron microscope, which has the highest resolution till now. Children, when you will conduct your experiment, you will see that the compound microscope looks like this, and it has a eyepiece where you keep your eyes, and then it has a stage where you keep your specimen, and then at lower side you will see a mirror which receives the light which falls on the sample and ultimately reaches to your eyes and enables you to visualize the specimen under microscope. Now we will see that what are living organisms made up of. Just a building is made up of bricks. The body is also made up of so many types of cells. If you will take an example of your building where you are staying, you will see that there are so many floors. In each floor there are so many flats, and if you will see the smallest structural unit in each flat, you will see that it is made up of bricks, which is similar throughout the building, whether it is the first floor or the top floor. The entire building is made up of bricks, which is the smallest structural unit. In the same way, our body and all the living organisms' body is made up of a very small structural and functional unit that is called as cell. Based on cellular organization, some organisms are of single cell and some are made up of more than one cell. So based on the number of cells which are present in an organism, the living organisms can be divided into two categories, that is unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms can be of Chlamydomonas, it can be amoeba, it can be paramecium, it can be any other living organism which is made up of only one cell. So that unicellular organism performs all its vital activities within a cell, within a single cell only. The organisms which are made up of more than one type of cell, like us, are called as multicellular organisms. Irrespective of unicellular or multicellular organism, the cells perform similar basic function for their survival. So now let us study about the shape and sizes of the cell. Shape and size of the cells vary, but all of these are ultimately determined by the specific function which that cell performs. So, what decides the shape and size of a particular cell? The function which that cell performs decide the particular shape and size of that cell. So, some cells can change their shape, like amoeba. You know that amoebas have pseudopodia in them, and with the help of pseudopodia they keep on changing their body shape. Similarly, in living organism there is a special type of cell which doesn't have a fixed shape and size, that is WBC. It is very important, children. Generally we ask it as a question in exams, that which cell is not having permanent shape and size in human body. So the answer is WBCs. WBCs keeps on changing their shape and size. But in plants and other animals, most of the cells have their fixed shape. Only two exceptions are there, that is amoeba and WBCs. The smallest cell is PPLO, that is mycoplasma. The largest cell is ostrich egg. The longest animal cell is nerve cell. A micrometer is a unit in which we measure the size of the cells, and it is denoted as μm. In this slide you can see the picture of different type of shapes of the cell. Muscle cell, which is a spindle in shape, RBCs, which is bicon-cave in shape, and then guard cells are there which have a kidney bean shape. Then nerve cell is there which has a branch shape. Then paramecium structure is there which has a horseshoe shape. Then diatom is there which has a star shape. So now let us come to the next slide. So it is again the slide which is showing you the division in organisms on the basis of number of cells present in them. So let us see this. Organisms can be divided into two parts: unicellular organisms, multicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms have only single cell in them, and the examples are amoeba, bacteria and paramecium. Multicellular organisms are made up of many types of cell, and the examples are plants and different types of animals. So now let us discuss about the differences between unicellular and multicellular organisms. Children, this is again a very common question which is generally asked in exams. So let us see this. Unicellular organisms are made up of single cell, and multicellular organisms are made up of so many types of cell. Single cell is present in unicellular organism, and within that single cell these unicellular organisms are capable of performing all life processes like obtaining food, respiration, excretion, growth, reproduction, repair, etc. All the essential vital activities can be performed within that single cell only. Whereas in case of multicellular organisms, cells have a similar basic structure and similar basic function and activities, and there are different types of cells which make a different organ system, tissue system, which are specialized to perform different functions. Like for respiration, we have respiratory system, we have a digestive system, we have excretory system, we have nervous system. So there are so many types of system which perform the function which is very specific in that living organism. So cell is a basic unit of life because it performs all the life functions like intake of food, material, excretion, metabolism, respiration, irritability, etc. Division of labor is also one of the unique property of multicellular organisms. Cells usually possesses a number of components called as cell organelles. That means within a single cell also there are different types of organelles, and these different type of organelles perform different function. That is what I told you now, that the organelles which are present within the cell are also specific in their function. So a kind of division of labor is seen in these cells. Each cell organelle perform different functions. These functions can be clearing of waste material, protein synthesis or lipid synthesis, etc. So now let us discuss about that what is cell made up of. A cell is a tiny mass of protoplasm which is surrounded by a membrane and is capable of performing all the functions of life. A typical cell is formed of three parts. When you will take a sample of any cell, when you will conduct experiments of this chapter in your laboratory, onion peel will be given to you and you will observe that onion peel section in microscope, and then when you will observe it under microscope you will find out three different parts in that sample, that is plasma membrane, or in case of onion peel it is cell wall actually, because plants have cell wall which is their outermost layer. But when we are observing a animal cell, then we will see plasma membrane in place of cell wall, and nucleus which is a control center of a cell, and cytoplasm which is processing metabolic machinery of a cell. So actually there are three basic components, main components, which are easily visualized by you in any sample when you will observe it under a compound microscope. These are plasma membrane or cell wall, nucleus, and cytoplasm. So here in this slide you can see that in first diagram there is a cell, and that cell is of plant cell. So it is shown as a green color. So this green color also indicates that the cell is plant cell, and within that cell you will see the outer periphery or the boundary of a cell which is known as cell wall here, and then a very dark green color structure which is nucleus, and in between that nucleus and cell wall there is a granular material which is present, and this is known as cytoplasm. In the second structure you can see again the magnified form of nucleus, and in third diagram here you can see plasma membrane very clearly. Now let us discuss about plasma membrane. This plasma membrane is a outermost membrane in case of animal cells, whereas in case of plant cell wall is a outermost membrane which is made up of cellulose, and beneath that cell wall plasma membrane is present. So ultimately plasma membrane is present in both plant cell and animal cell. So now let us study about the chemical composition of this plasma membrane. This plasma membrane is made up of two layers of lipids. That is why it is called as bilipid layer. Bi means two, lipid layer means it is made up of lipid. So here you can see in this diagram that there are rounded structure which is colored as orange or reddish structure, and you can see that there are two layers of that, the upper layer and the lower layer. Here is the upper layer, and here you can see that it has, this one is upper layer and this is the lower layer, and from this upper and lower layer two black arrows are there. You can see these arrows here. Yes, these are the sides of that bilipid layers, and in that bilipid layer there are protein molecules which are embedded within these bilipid layer. So here you can see a protein channel in this structure, and this again a protein molecule. So these protein molecules are the molecules which help in transportation of various substances in and out of the cell, and these are also called as carrier protein molecules, which attaches to something which has to come inside the cell from one side, and then the carrier molecule rotates and releases that particle inside the cell. So that is how the plasma membrane helps in transportation of various things in and out of the cell. The outermost delicate elastic membranous covering of the cell that separates its content from the external environment is called plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is selectively permeable. Children, this is a very important point, and this is a very unique feature of plasma membrane. That is why it is called a selectively permeable membrane, because it does not allow entry and exit of all the molecules through it. It chooses some of the molecule, or it selects some of the molecule to go in and out of the cell. That is why its name is given as selectively permeable membrane here. It allows entry of certain substances, restricting others. It is made up of bilipid layer and proteins that are integrated in and out of this membrane, and small carbohydrates are attached at the place to outer surface of lipids and protein. And now the functions of this plasma membrane, which are very very important, children. Its first and very important function is it provides shape to the contents of cell. It protects the internal content of the cell. It acts as a mechanical barrier. It is a semi-permeable membrane, so it selects the things or the molecules which are required by the cell, and it also allows the waste material to go out of the cell. It performs the function of endocytosis and exocytosis that I will discuss later on. And then it is a recognition center of cell, because it recognizes that which substance is required by the cell, and then it is a flow of information in the cell. It performs the function of osmosis, that also we are going to discuss later on, and it maintains the cell continuity, and it is modified to perform a special type of functions in certain cases, like absorption of nutrient in case of microvilli. So this plasma membrane performs various types of functions, and it has great importance to the membranes. Act as a physical barrier between the organelles of a cell and its cytoplasm and its surrounding environment too. Based on the permeability quality of the membranes can be divided into various parts. Impermeable membranes, which do not allow substances to pass through it. Permeable membrane, which allows both solute and solvent to pass through it. Semi-permeable membrane, which allows only solvent but prevents the solute to pass through it. And selectively permeable membrane are the membrane which allows the passage of solvent and some selected solutes to pass across it. Some substances may pass across a membrane without or with the expenditure of energy. That means when a substance is passing across a membrane, some of these substances require energy in the form of ATP, whereas some substances do not require any kind of ATP for transportation. So based on this quality, there is two types of transport which takes place across plasma membrane, and these are named as active transport through plasma membrane and passive transport. So let us discuss about active transport first. Here it is active, means it requires some energy. So the substances pass through the plasma membrane or any other membrane with consumption of energy. Some energy expenditure is required here. That is why this particular type of transport is known as active transport. Here you can see that ATP is required for transportation of some molecule across the membrane, whereas the other type of transport is called as passive transport. So the substances pass the membrane, plasma membrane, without consuming energy. Here you can see here the type of movement which is there is diffusion and facilitated diffusion. Here no ATP is required for transportation of various substances. So now let us discuss about exocytosis first. It is a process in which material inside a cell is packed into a vesicle and is excreted into the extracellular medium. Whereas in case of endo means inside, endocytosis is the process in which the plasma membrane invaginates or makes inward fold to form a vesicle that brings substances into the cell. So here in this diagram, children, you can see that one side it is exocytosis and the other side it is endocytosis. In exocytosis, something is moving from inside the cell to outside environment through plasma membrane. So the thing which is need to be thrown out of the cell is this, and it is packing inside the vesicle, within a vesicle, and then it is going out of the cell. So this process is called as exocytosis, and this process is occurring through plasma membrane. And in endocytosis, suppose this is a protein molecule here, this green color molecule is a protein molecule or some other essential nutrient which is required by the cell. So that material will come on the periphery of plasma membrane. There it will make a inward fold in the plasma membrane, here you can see, and then it will come inside the cell in a form of vesicle. So this process is known as endocytosis. Here I have one more slide to show you this process of endocytosis and exocytosis. Here you can see the green color material which is here is required to come inside the cell. So it is coming in the form of vesicle, and the place where it is entering is making a inward invagination or inward folding here. And then when it is inside the cell, it is in a form of vesicle. When it has to go out of the cell, again it is packed and thrown out of the cell in a form of vesicle only. So here it is the process of endocytosis, whereas here it is a process of exocytosis. Now let us discuss about the passive transport. Passive transport is of two types, diffusion and osmosis. Diffusion is a process of movement of substances from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration till it spreads uniformly in a given space. And diffusion is a process in which no selectively permeable membrane is required. So here in this diagram, children, you can see that in this blue color beaker, one side the concentration of molecules is very high, which is denoted as a yellow dots here, and the other side, this side, it is low. So from higher concentration which is present in this side, the movement of particle is taking place towards the lower concentration side. So this process of movement of particles from its higher concentration to lower concentration is called as diffusion. Why diffusion is important? All living cells rely on diffusion to live. They use it for various purposes like getting raw materials for respiration, dissolved substances and gases, removing waste products from respiration. Plant uses it for photosynthesis, for export of intaking of raw material, and for export of waste product from the cell. So many children asked me, they had that doubt that how CO2 and O2 comes in and out of the cell. So this is the process. Diffusion is a process by which CO2 and O2 comes in and out of the cell. So when the concentration of CO2 is more inside the cell, the CO2 as compared to outside environment, that time the CO2 will move from inside environment of the cell to outside. In the same way, when the concentration of oxygen is high outside the cell as compared to inside environment of the cell, the oxygen molecule will move from outside to inside the cell to maintain the concentration of oxygen. And this difference in concentration of various things is called as concentration gradient. When the concentration gradient is there, diffusion takes place. Here I have one more example to tell you about this process, that is diffusion and breathing. Oxygen is inhaled, air diffuses through the lungs and into the bloodstream ultimately. The oxygen is then transported throughout the body. Carbon dioxide is the waste produced by various cells during respiration, and carbon dioxide diffuses from body tissues into the bloodstream and is exhaled via lungs. So this intake of oxygen and outgoing of carbon dioxide takes place with the process of diffusion only. So diffusion plays a very important role, children. Now let us discuss about another type of passive transport, that is osmosis. It is defined as a type of diffusion in which a semi-permeable membrane is involved. Here also the movement of various solvent molecules or water molecule takes place from the region of its higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. So here in this diagram, children, you can see that this membrane is semi permeable membrane, and this side water molecule are very high, so the concentration of water is high this side as compared to the concentration of water this side. So for easier understanding, you can see that number of water molecules are high in this side, whereas it is low in this side. So concentration gradient is created because of this difference. So the water concentration is high on this side and low this side. That is why the water molecules are passing from one side to another side. Here also in this diagram, in this slide, you can see that there is a beaker in which a semi-permeable membrane is shown, or selectively permeable membrane is shown. Here you can see this, and one side of that membrane the concentration of sugar molecule is more and concentration of water is less. Children, this is a very important point to notice. And on the other side dilute solution is there, that means the concentration of water is more on the other side, this side, and concentration of sugar is less. So what will happen in this case? The water molecule will move from higher concentration to the lower concentration side to balance the concentration both the sides. So this is occurring, this movement is occurring through a selectively permeable membrane. So this type of movement is called as osmosis. Here one more definition of osmosis. It is a diffusion of water through the semi-permeable membrane. Children, this is a very important term here, semi-permeable membrane. So a diffusion of water molecule through the semi-permeable membrane from a solution of lower concentration towards a solution of higher concentration is known as osmosis. Again, I want to explain this to you, that diffusion of water through a semi-permeable membrane is known as osmosis, and a semi-permeable membrane is a membrane which is permeable to solvent, that is water, but not to the larger molecules. So here higher concentration of water is there. From higher concentration of water, the molecules are moving towards the lower concentration of water, and dissolved molecules like glucose, starch are called as solutes in the case of osmosis when it is occurring in a human body or any other living organism. And there is one more important point, that water is solvent and glucose and starch are solutes here. So in osmosis, the solvent will move from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Again, in this diagram you can see, children, one more example of osmosis is given here. One side hypotonic solution is there, and other side hypertonic solution is there. So the water molecules are moving from lower concentration to the higher concentration. I will explain you what is hypotonic and hypertonic, then you will understand this part. Now let us see one more example of osmosis which is related to our daily life. When your hands are immersed in dishwash water, or when you keep your body for longer duration in water, that time your skin loses and becomes bloated. This is the effect of osmosis. You must have observed that when you are in swimming pool for more time duration, or when you keep your hands for more duration in water, that time such kind of wrinkles appears in your body or in your fingers. So that is one of the example of osmosis. Osmosis is a flow of water down its concentration gradient across a semi-permeable membrane. Osmosis is an example of diffusion, which is when molecule tends to distribute themselves evenly in a space. It is a membrane or barrier that allows some molecules or substances to cross, but not to the all type of molecules. So here one more slide is there just to explain you what are the differences in osmosis and diffusion. Children, you can very easily understand that in both the cases the similarity is that the molecules are moving from higher concentration to the lower concentration region, whereas the major difference is that the presence of semi permeable membrane, which is essential in case of osmosis. Let us move to next slide, which is showing differences again. Diffusion is a flow of either solute or solvent molecule in both directions, and osmosis involves flow of solvent molecule in one direction only. Diffusion is a fast process, and there is no requirement of any membrane for movement of molecule in case of diffusion, whereas in case of osmosis, a permeable, selectively permeable or partially permeable membrane is required, and it is a slow process. And diffusion occurs in liquids as well as gases, and osmosis occurs only in liquids. It is an important point here. And diffusion is a movement, and these movements are over large distances. So that is why that smell of scent, smell of perfume goes very fast in a larger area. It covers larger area, and whereas in case of osmosis, the movement is over a short distance only, within a vessel, within a body, or within some confined structures only. Again, this slide is to make you clear about the differences between osmosis and diffusion, where you can see that presence of semi-permeable membrane is very much required. Now there is 3 new terms for you children, that is types of solutions or tonic solutions. There are 3 types of solutions: hypertonic, hyper means higher concentration; hypotonic, lower concentration; isotonic, same concentration. So let us discuss about these 3 types of tonic solution one by one. A hypertonic solution has more solute than the cell. A cell placed in this solution will give up water or lose water by the process of osmosis, and the cell will shrink. Whereas a hypotonic solution has less solutes than the cell. A cell placed in this type of solution will take up water or absorb water through osmosis and blow up or swell up. Whereas in the third type of solution, the isotonic solution has just the right or equal amount of solute for the cell. A cell which is placed in this type of solution will stay as it is, because the concentration of solution of is same in both the sides, or the concentration or the amount of solute is equal in and out of the cell. So based on this tonicity, again we will study one of the condition. When a cell is placed in a hypertonic solution, hypotonic solution and isotonic solution, what will happen to a cell, animal cell and plant cell, when it is kept in a hypotonic solution? The cell will absorb water and swell up by the process of osmosis, and ultimately it will burst open. Whereas if the animal cell or plant cell is kept in isotonic solution, the cell will remain as it is. There will not be any change in its shape, because the concentration of the solute is equal in and out of the cell. Whereas when the cell is kept in hypertonic solution is the solution where the concentration of water is less. So what will happen when the concentration of water is less outside in this solution, in this environment? Here children, the concentration of water is less in this environment as compared to the cell. So what will happen? The water molecule will move from higher concentration to the lower concentration, and the water will move from inside of the cell to outside environment, and as a result of this, the cell will shrink. Children, soon you will be having your periodic test, and I know you all have anxiety about your periodic test, that how the question paper will be, what type of questions will be framed, how you are going to type the answers on your mobile's small screen. All these questions are there in your mind. So I just want to relax you by informing you about the pattern of question paper and the type of question paper which can be asked in exam. All the questions which will be asked in this periodic test exam will be MCQ types, multiple choice type. So you need not to type a lot, or you need not to write long sentences in your answer. You have to just choose the correct option and that's it. So the type of questions that can be asked in exam are of this type. In this slide you can see different type of question with multiple options. So you have to choose the correct option and then you have to submit your question paper. So here also in this slide you can see some examples of question which can be asked, or the format of question which can be asked in exam. Here one more slide to show you. And such type of condition based question can also come, in which a big text can be given to you. Based on that text which is provided to you, given to you, some reasoning questions can be asked. So for that type of questions you need to read the question very carefully, and then you need to think, analyze, and then give the answer. So such type of questions are new for you, but these are very good type of questions. So please practice for these questions. Thank you.